Hello and welcome to JoyRide with your hosts, the metaphysical moms, Tiffany and Kerry. JoyRide takes you on a spin through all things spiritual and soulful, including holistic healing, energy work, and personal development. Now, here are your hosts, Tiffany and Kerry.
Here are your hosts, Tiffany
and Kerry.
How are you today, dear?
I'm great. You know, I couldn't find my makeup bag.
Uh-oh.
I have no idea where it is.
You look beautiful without it.
Oh, you're kind. You're kind.
You don't need a lick of it.
It's so bad when you can't even locate it. It's not in the trunk. It's not
in that glove box of yours.
No, it's not anymore. I know. Do you remember that day you pulled out the whole
I'm like, hello.
ponytail?
There was hair and animals and all kinds of things in there. That's a mom-mobile for you.
No, yours is the mom-mobile. If you ever need food, water, playing cards, you have it.
I do,
baby.
I have it. Mm-hmm. I am packing for the road. So we have a really fun show today. We have our new friend. She's a fellow metaphysical mama, and I'm just fascinated by all that you do because you have a whole lot going on here. And I'm going to read your bio here for a second. We are very happy to welcome today Miss Sally Bartolameolli. Did I get that right?
Did we get it?
You did great.
Bartolameolli. What a beautiful
impressive
name. And it's got a lot of vowels in it. And you are a shadow work facilitator. You're a coach, a teacher, an author of 2 amazing books. You also write for many articles on blogs. You're the creator of Grieving, Growth, and Gratitude Circles, Dance Your Shadow's Divine Workshops, and Ancestral Weaving.
Ancestral weaving, I sure am.
That is a whole lot of stuff going on, my dear, and I want to hear about all of it because it sounds so healing and deep and juicy.
Do you hear this?
Or by someone with ADD. It could be
well, I mean, no, I can relate with that. I think that's why we've hit it off. Exactly. We just have so much to do.
Ideas.
Short period of time. So do you listen to this and say, wow, I really am I am busy?
No, I know I'm busy. And that's been part of the challenge, is really looking at where do I want to put my energy? You know, I want to be of service. How do I be of service in a way that really focuses my energy? And so that's been a challenge. That's been part of the journey, is to really really channel and look at, you know, how to do that, how to focus.
Well, I have to say that shadow work, I've always known that term. I've gone through some things sort of in that vein, and it tweaks me. I mean, just hearing it, I can feel the block going up, and I keep thinking, okay, I need to do this. And so I can't wait to get into exactly what that means.
Yeah, tell us a little about what shadow work is, please.
So what I want to preface it with is Carl Jung, of course, was the first person, I think, that really brought that into our culture, the term shadows.
Right.
And so what Jung said is that, you know, a lot of our healing comes from looking at those places that are hidden within us, our shadows.
That we don't want to look at.
That we don't want to look at. And when we look at them, you know, there's so much energy that's released, because what we do with our shadows often is we hide, repress, and deny them. It takes a lot of energy to do that. And so people are doing things called shadow work in our culture. I am trained through Cliff Berry, and that term is a trademark term. We are trained as shadow work facilitators and coaches in a particular way. And so what we do may be different from what other people may do as they work with shadows. What we do in a personal growth process is we really, first of all, create safety.
Yeah.
I mean, to look at those places that you've spent a lot of time and energy hiding from others takes a sense of safety. So as facilitators and coaches, we create a very safe environment. We call this a shame-free environment. What that means is you bring anything. You bring your fear, you bring your rage, you bring your skepticism, you bring your joy, you bring things you haven't talked about ever. You know, so this sense of safety to explore these places is really key, shame-free environment. The other thing we do is it's a very consensual environment. We don't go places with people that they don't want to go. They get to choose what they want to look at, what they might not want to look at. You know, it's very much a consensual environment. And so it isn't, you know, it's very deep work. And
yes.
So do people come to you when they reach that point of, this isn't working for me and I can't see why? I can't see the pattern. Is that
or
typically...
crisis? Do they come in like crisis, like everything's
It could be either of those. A lot of times, most of the people that come into a shadow work container that we hold, that we facilitate, are people who have done a whole lot of other personal growth work, because this is very deep shamanic work in many ways. So the way that you identify if you have some shadows in your life is you may be experiencing a sense of being stuck. That's what we tell people. You might feel stuck. You know, like you keep trying to do something and you want this in your life, but you can't break through it.
Sure.
Another way is that you have a very strong reaction to somebody else's behavior.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean that their behavior isn't disrespectful, or it isn't whatever it might be. You may be accurate in your opinion or your judgment of that. But if you have a very big reaction to it, chances are that's a part of yourself that's in shadow.
Yeah.
Yep. The other way we tell people that you can often identify if you've got something in shadow is if you try really, 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 really hard not to be a particular way.
Right.
But that particular behavior kind of comes up and bites you in the ass. Hope I'm allowed to say ass.
You're allowed to say ass. Yes.
So it kind of bites you, it sneaks out.
Yes.
And so we say, well, that's probably something in shadow. So when you create a place, an environment where there's safety, right, and consensuality, and it's shame-free, you can begin to explore those energies that you don't want to explore. And what you do when you do that in a ritual container where there are no consequences, right, where you've got eldership and very skilled and trained people holding that container, you start exploring those energies in a way that gives you freedom when you go out in the world to explore those energies.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's such a privilege, really.
Well, and by opening it up, does it integrate into the rest of you, or does it just simply go away? The behavior.
I think you have more choice.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I have had my anger in general in shadow, right, there's something I believe called healthy anger. The gift of anger is strength, right? We would say in shadow work, that's from the warrior quadrant. We also work in 4 quadrants.
Yeah, tell us about your quadrants.
Well, there are 4 quadrants that we work in, 4 archetypes. Now, there are many more. That's another term that Carl Jung brought into our consciousness, archetypes, right? It's been around for a long time, and there are hundreds of archetypes, right? There's the mother archetype, there's the prostitute archetype, there's the child archetype. We work with 4 archetypes in shadow work: sovereign archetype, lover archetype, warrior archetype, and the magician archetype.
Ooh.
And so what we do, if you were to come to, I have an upcoming shadow work weekend, and on Friday night what we do is we have altars set up in the 4 directions in the space that we're using, and we introduce our beliefs as shadow work facilitators. We tell people you don't have to believe what we believe, but we want you to know what we believe because you're here.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is where we're coming from. So we talk about the sovereign archetype, and we talk about the characteristics that we believe that energy holds, and we also believe that we all have that energy within us.
Can you tell us a few characteristics so I can get an idea of what is a
Well,
sovereign?
in the sovereign archetype is someone who, that energy is someone who blesses and supports.
Okay.
So when you are in your mother archetype,
Right.
and you are unconditionally blessing and supporting your children, you are accessing your sovereign energy.
Okay, that makes sense.
I love
Yeah.
that.
The sovereign energy also holds your vision for yourself, your passion in the world. You, as women who have started this beautiful radio show, I would say that was your sovereign archetype too. You had a vision for something. You wanted to make a difference. You wanted to be of service.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
So that's an example of the sovereign archetype. And what we believe is that we all have access to those energies, but sometimes we've been wounded or hurt, and we don't know how to access it. Some of us are really high in a particular archetype and really need to develop some skills in another archetype. For example, a warrior archetype, right? This is the archetype that allows us to protect ourselves, to have good boundaries.
Okay.
This is the part of us that says no. This is the part of us that drove here. A warrior is about taking action. right? We got to be able to drive, take action, be grounded. The sovereign element is fire, to be on fire with passion. The element in the warrior is earth. You're grounded. You know how to manage your money. You know how to take action when you need to. And sometimes if we're wounded, and I think this happens a lot in our culture for women, if you're a strong and powerful woman who accesses her anger, she could be called a
bitch.
Yeah. Just wrote an article about that on Elephant Journal.
I saw that. Yeah,
and it got a lot of views because I think women relate to having to, keep their power a little bit in shadow, right? For fear of being called a bitch. But so what we do is sometimes someone who comes to a shadow work weekend might do a process that we draw from the warrior, right, to help them access their anger. And rather than, burying it and getting depressed, putting it in shadow, or raging, because it just kind of explodes and you hurt people you love, when you explore that energy in a healthy environment, then you develop some skills for recognizing when you're getting angry instead of tolerating and speaking up, having a voice, setting a boundary. So when we explore through these archetypes in a shadow work weekend, we have access to new behaviors and to parts of ourselves we didn't have before.
So would the idea be to sort of balance the lover, the magician, the warrior, and the sovereign, to kind of have a balanced understanding of what a healthy, what that expression of your personal expression of that looks like?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Because we don't say you have too much of anything.
Yeah.
We say you just need to bring the balance up in the other quadrants and the other archetypes.
Yeah.
Well, and I would think that, let's say if I have to lead a big group, then I would have to call on a certain energy.
I would say every energy in terms of our shadow work, because there's the sovereign part of you that wants to, impart, be of service, right? The magician is the strategizer, so you want to have a plan. How am I gonna do this?
Kind of that alchemist.
Yep. Yes. You bring in your warrior to, have some things you want to say, some actions you want to take. You might want to bring in your lover. Your lover is, there's a lot of aspects to the lover archetype, one of which is creativity and playfulness. So you might want to bring all of those things in. Yeah.
So would the shadow, for everything that we have, every quote unquote good thing or every aspect, there's a darker side or the potential to have that darker side if it's out of balance.
Or
is
a
what you're
wounded
saying.
version of it.
The wounded version.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I would say, yes.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
like
love
someone
that.
who's over-identified with their lover, which is also the part of us that can access our grief and be connected to our feelings. If they don't have some good, healthy warrior energy, right, they could possibly just sit around and cry all day and not get anything done.
Right.
It can take over if you don't have the other archetypes to help bring into balance, as we've said, what we want to do in the world and who we want to be.
Oh, that is incredible.
I'm thinking I need some warrior boost here. I'm
thinking I might come see you Friday
the money.
night.
So you were just mentioning that you host workshops, and if you're here in Houston, where Sally is based out of, you are hosting one coming up in February 26th through the 27th called the Women's Shadow Work Weekend. We'll put links to everything we're talking about on our website, which is JoyRideShow.com, on the episode blog, and look for Sally's show. I think we're show 38, and we'll put links because your website is Sally Bartolameolli, and I'm going to spell it, but we'll put the links on our website. It's BARTOLAMEOLLI.
Yeah.
.com.
Good.
Yay,
job.
well done.
Bartolameolli.com.
I love your name.
That's my father's name. Yeah.
Because this is really interesting, and I think especially so you're doing it with a small group. Maybe how many do you have in your workshops?
We have probably right now 10 signed up.
Okay.
We have a couple staff, and we always facilitate in pairs.
Yeah.
And that's a very intentional thing as well, because there may be some work that someone's doing that really resembles my work. And I might step back a little bit, and I might be the back facilitator for a while. My co-facilitator might step up. So we really look at how can we best serve people
that's
to go where they
interesting.
want to go.
That's the
We're
leaning
getting-
in or out. leaning in, leaning out.
Leaning in, leaning out. That's
I did
right.
my research.
Yeah. Oh, girl.
I know.
But I'm sure you can get so much out of seeing other people and where their strengths are, and it's just a natural strength for them, or for something you've had experiences where that was not developed in you, and you see them just stand in that place.
We tell people sometimes your greatest gift may be in witnessing somebody else's work.
Yes.
And when we pull energies out to look at them, people hold those energies. So we have role player.
Yeah.
Role players. You might have a line. Sometimes a person's greatest gift is holding a particular line in a process. I mean, you never know. If one is open, right, the gifts can come in so many places.
Well, that I know we sort of touched on this when we spoke last week. I went through a program, and we are not taught to have conflict, how to be in conflict.
Yeah.
It either, you just cut the person off, or you rage,
Right.
or you, and so that has been
Run away.
Right, exactly. Instead of
And gossip about them behind their back.
Oh,
Isn't
yeah.
that awful?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, can you hear me? Because usually it's not what you're saying to me that triggers me. It's you're saying something that I've experienced before.
Right. Or something, I say something, and this happened. We teach this in a shadow work weekend. We actually teach something called clean talk, and we draw from the sovereign, the lover, the warrior, and the magician. We teach people how to have a clean conversation. And what you're saying is, I may say something to you. I may say certain words. That's the data. That's from the warrior. And you may make something completely different up from what I said. So your magician makes up a story about what I said.
This is
right?
what I hear.
Yeah, this is what, And so just teasing that apart is so powerful that, we get to look at, okay, this person said this, but this is what I'm making up. I think that might be about something I'm carrying inside. And if not, to find a clean, respectful way to check it out with someone.
That's so interesting. And it makes me think we do so much of our communication now by email and text, and it's so many ways to misconstrue a text.
Exactly.
And I've seen joke videos about it where one guy's texting something and he sends it one way and the other guy reads it, and it's a completely different take on
my
the
husband
words.
is forever saying to me, and bless him, I don't listen. Don't handle potentially emotionally charged communication in email or text.
That's what my husband says
That's
too.
exactly
He says, don't do it in a text. Do it in a phone call.
That's their good warrior and their good magician, seeing the possibility of what
because I can read no as no. You can read it in so many ways. You're
It
putting your
depends
own
on how
story
you're
on
doing
it.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
I bet that gets a lot of us in trouble and we don't even realize it.
I think so.
Well, I watched my brother go through this divorce, and it wasn't pretty, as it usually
Often
isn't. And they would text, and I always saw that. I said, just look at it this way. Maybe she's saying this, not that, because he automatically wanted to take it just the nastiest way possible, so that then he could respond.
Yeah.
So this teaches really authentic communication, face to face. To establish your own boundaries, do it with love. And creative solutions too.
Yes, It's also about, my husband and I clear with we call it, clearing with each other, but it's also about saying, hey, listen, I have something I want to talk with you about. Are you available?
Yes.
So that's also a way to really create the container of a communication. So,
well, and Tiffany, you were just saying that. You and I were talking about that, how you and yours will do that. It's like you don't just walk in and say, I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I have something that's upsetting. Do you have a minute where you can listen? And it's like, let me finish this email. Let me, get 5 minutes. And I'm all ears.
Yeah. So that I would say is good warrior, just really asking for the boundary, and asking for what you want is good sovereign. That's also a sovereign. This is what I want. My husband jokingly says I have a lot of sovereign energy. He calls me Queen Bee, which is nice.
I like the Queen
In our
Bee.
world, that's like, oh, thank you.
That's a compliment.
Yeah.
Well, when we get back, we're about to head off to a commercial break, and when we come back, I'd love to know how you reached this point. Your backstory.
Ooh,
all right, guys, you're with the JoyRide Show, and we'll be right back.
Hey, it's Tiffany.
And it's Kerry with the JoyRide Show.
Kerry, did you know that the girls from the Shiny Show, Kerry and Allison, are taking the Shiny Show on the road to Vegas and everyone's invited?
Yes, I did. It's Shiny Does God in Sin City, May 12th through the 14th.
Yes, they have all sorts of spiritual fun planned. They're going to be channeling the spirits of Vegas past, like Bugsy and Capone. They'll be channeling God, source energy, holding workshops.
Yay! You can sign up for 1, 2, or all 3 days.
Okay, so I'll put the info on our website at joyrideshow.com on the links page.
That's one weekend you won't want to miss.
Absolutely. And we're back with JoyRide. Thank you so much for joining us. We are speaking with Sally, who is a shadow work facilitator, and you're based here in Houston and do your workshops here in Houston, but I understand that you can Skype session for a personal with anybody.
Absolutely.
All over the world.
Skype, phone sessions, yep. And I also do e-courses.
Okay.
Which is something people can do online it's an 8-week period of time, and we communicate via email. So I have clients in the UK and all over the world who then you communicate when you want to, when you have time.
Sure.
Yeah.
You've gotten great feedback from that, too. I was reading on your website. That
I
seems
love
to be
it.
really
I'm a
effective.
writer, so I'm able to express myself well in writing. And, an e-course doesn't work for everybody, but for people who are really busy, who want to handle things in their own time and space, it works well.
That's great.
And you also said that shadowwork.com is the site that is all around this process that you're coached in.
Yes.
And you can contact with facilitators all over the world.
Yep,
to
all
do
over
this
the
work.
United States. There's also a growing shadow work community in Russia and
Really?
the UK and France. Yeah.
Wow.
That's great. Well, we'll put
It's
links
wonderful.
to everything on our site,
Thank you.
joyrideshow.com, on Sally's blog page. And I wanted to talk to you because you've had a long journey yourself, and you're very candid about your own addictive issues and the traumas that you've been through that have brought you to this place of healing and understanding.
Right.
Can you share some of that with us?
Sure. I, came into personal growth work because I was actively bulimic in my late teens and early 20s. And try as I might, to stop throwing up my food, I couldn't. And so I ran into a friend who also had an eating disorder. It was at a young adult group at a Catholic church on the west side of Houston, Texas. I had moved to Houston from Michigan in 1982. And I started to see a therapist and started to look at my own addictive behavior. Addictions are all about doing something to avoid what we're feeling. I didn't know that I was carrying a lot of pain and grief inside. My father had died when I was 15 months old. There was a lot of, I think, buried grief in my big, huge Italian family. He died young. He was a family hero. And so I had behaviors that also showed up in my relationships. I'm a heterosexual woman, so in my relationships with men, there was a lot of codependency, a lot of trying to please. I didn't know how to have my voice, So I started to look at things from the position of them being addictive behaviors. And I started to look at my family system from the perspective of being an adult child of a dysfunctional family. Al-Anon is a great, especially in Houston.
12-step program.
Yeah, we just get to see the roles we played.
So
in our
Al-Anon
family.
is the adult children.
There is Al-Anon,
which stands for?
It's actually began as a companion. Alcoholism is a family disease.
Right.
So everybody's affected by it. There's the person who's actually drinking. Then there's a person who's probably enabling. Then because of the dysfunction and the pain in the family, people take on certain roles.
Yeah.
And so Al-Anon helps you to look at the family disease of alcoholism and to see the role that you played in it. And Houston, we have some good 12-step spirituality in Houston.
Yes.
So
Yeah, we really do.
We'll put
Al-Anon,
links to all of that on, if that speaks to you, we'll put links on our website on how to contact that.
Yeah, so also looked at an addictive behavior called co-sex addiction. And I am not a typical co-sex addict, so to speak. Generally what we refer to in that dynamic is that there is someone who is finding their way of avoiding pain through sex. That can be pornography. That can be, sex workers. It can also happen in the relationship. I don't feel good right now, so I want to have sex with a partner. It can occur in all kinds of ways. When we use anything to avoid being with what's going on, it can become an addictive behavior.
Sure.
And so a co-sex addict is the partner in that relationship, where the fix for the sex addict is sex. The fix for the co-sex addict is to try to cement the relationship. I'll do whatever you want to cement the relationship. And so that can happen in a heterosexual relationship. It's often in our culture the man who's acting out sexually and the woman who's trying to be all she can be to keep him around, giving of herself through sex to try and cement the relationship. So it's just another way to really look at how can we be authentically ourselves? How can we connect intimately emotionally? How can we connect intimately spiritually? How can we connect intimately sexually from a place of authenticity? Yeah?
And
I'm
holding
nodding.
your own space.
I'm nodding.
Yes, I know. I keep nodding.
Yeah.
It's radio. I have to remember to say yes.
Oh, it's not just the three of us here? It's not just us?
He's here.
We have our Joy
Mr.
Tribe,
Bobby.
who I'm sure this is resonating with for different aspects of this. It's so common.
Yeah.
And you were saying earlier, when you see your parent do one thing, often I think the pendulum swings completely the opposite way.
Because I'm not going to be like that.
So
and
I'm
so we
gonna
go to the other extreme.
to the other extreme.
Right.
And so I'm just recognizing some of that behavior in my family and friends' family, where you just go to the opposite extreme, and that's got its own set of issues. And
we all need help. We need
we
help
all
seeing.
need help.
We all
do.
need
Come
help.
see
We
Sally.
all hold each other's hands. Well, so when you went through this, and obviously this is a journey. It takes time.
Mm-hmm.
But did you see people come in and out of your life as you healed? How did your life change?
Oh, yeah. Well, I started to find my voice. I remember very specifically early in my 12-step recovery around my compulsive overeating. I remember I wouldn't even, I didn't feel hungry. I just would find myself eating and go, okay, what? I intellectually understood, okay, I'm eating to avoid feeling something. I'm eating emotionally, but I didn't have the connection in my body. And I remember very specifically having gone to Michigan. I'm from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I went
UP?
home. Yeah,
It's
UP.
beautiful. Is that the hand? Is this like the top
Well,
of the hand?
that's the Lower Peninsula. The Upper Peninsula is up top.
It's up by Canada.
Oh, beautiful.
We have family up there. Hi,
You
Upers.
do?
Yeah.
You do. You have Uper family members?
Uper.
Wow, that's great. We'll have to talk because
Okay.
I'm up there in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 months.
Oh,
yeah.
that'd be fun.
Yeah. it's
Okay,
beautiful.
sorry, we digress.
Anyway, yes. So
Kitchen table.
I do not remember. Oh, so I had gone home for the summer, and I had gotten together with some high school friends, and we were sitting at a table, and I remember a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, made a comment. It was just really sarcastic, and it was kind of a dig at me. And I had about a year of 12-step recovery under my belt, and I didn't just laugh and go along with it. I went, what did you mean by that? And the whole table got silent.
Like, oh, we don't usually
was
call
like,
it
Call
out.
it out. Exactly.
we just-
Sally usually doesn't do things like that.
Sally's sweet.
Yeah, Sally's very sweet and got very still. And somebody made a joke and we moved on. People are uncomfortable with tension a lot of times. But when I got back to Texas, I called her and I said, I just want to talk about it. I want to step over it. There was kind of a pink elephant in the living room there. Was there something I've done that hurt you at some time? Or why did you make that comment? Well, she just exploded. She yelled for probably 2 or 3 minutes. And I finally said, I'm going to get off the phone. And I got off the phone. It was like having you hear alcoholics talk about a blackout. I had like a food blackout. The next thing I remember is being in front of the television. In front of the refrigerator. Could have been the television, but in front of the refrigerator, just scanning up and down. And all of a sudden, I heard myself slam the door and say, I am not hungry. I'm angry.
Oh,
Wow.
And that was that moment I went, oh, that's the,
There it is.
Oh, there we go. You don't know how to be with your anger. And of course, anger, is a healthy emotion that helps us to care for ourselves, that helps us to know when our boundaries are being violated, right?
But we're women. We're not supposed to have boundaries. We're supposed to be
I
doormats.
know. Yeah, I know.
We're supposed to be
hear
sweet
ya.
above all else.
Yeah, I hear you.
Don't trail off on
We
that
gotta
one.
get over
That's
that.
why our tribe
Otherwise
is so
you're a bitch.
important. We got to have
No,
people who are
absolutely.
allies, you know, and us having our voice. Yeah. So
Thank
that
goodness for her, though. Thank goodness for
Oh,
that,
yeah.
so that you could see that.
we
What a
didn't
gift.
speak for many, many years, and we are now reconnecting on Facebook, which is a gift of Facebook. Now, I don't have a need today to go back and address that with her. I let her go, and I knew that was kind of that lesson of, okay, if I'm going to have a relationship with me, if I'm going to have me, if I'm going to take care of myself, there's going to be some risk,
Yeah.
you know? But every relationship that ended, there were so many relationships that came that were so beautiful and were able to go deeper. And I just, you know, my life today is a dream for me.
That's
And it
beautiful.
doesn't mean it's always
Wow.
easy, as you know. But I wouldn't trade anything for the life.
But
I
going
have
through
today.
this, there's more that you get out of it than it takes out of you. As
Absolutely.
you go through this. And you never know what seed you planted with your friend about kindness
It's
and standing
true.
up for herself, because she wouldn't be like that if it
And
didn't.
it's none of my business.
Right.
What seed I planted. My business is to care well for myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
So
agree.
last night when I was looking over a few things, something popped in my head, and I'd love to share it at this time. I was thinking about how beautiful you are and how the authenticity, I mean, you're teaching everyone to find their voice and to be authentic. And I feel that what I have learned is that living an authentic life is just about the most basic spiritual right and responsibility we have. Because if I'm real and I'm quirky and weird and, you know, fly my freak flag, then I allow you guys to do it too.
Right.
You know, and there's no
Right.
judgment.
Right.
And our freak flags kind of
Or
have
if
to match,
there
otherwise
is
people keep walking.
judgment, if there is judgment, we know that that's not about us.
Right.
Right? Because we always make things up about people and ourselves even. So that's the other thing I tell women. Well, I'm afraid of being judged. Well, you will be judged, and that's okay. You know, just, you know, it's someone's making something up, let them make it up. And if it's a relationship that matters, they'll come to you and you can clear it up. Otherwise, you know.
Like you said, what your opinion of me is none of my business.
That's right.
That whole
It's
thing.
risky. It's
Yeah.
all risky. Living an authentic life is risky.
Well, I'm actually in that right now. There's parents of some of my children's friends, and they're lovely. They're lovely, but I noticed we don't get called a lot recently, and they're, I think our spiritual sides don't exactly line up, or maybe I kind of challenge this, and I don't do it intentionally, but my story that I start making up is, oh, it must be me.
Right.
And it could just be that it's baseball.
I
you know,
know.
right now we're in the thick of baseball.
Yeah.
So it is. So I'm sitting with that and
Yeah.
said, okay, if that is
Yeah.
the case,
Yeah.
that's fine. Either
Right,
way.
Right.
So-
We have a good process in shadow work for the way we predate on ourselves. And women, ooh, baby. I mean, we predate, we'll chew ourselves to bits.
Yes.
What is
You
that
know,
word? Predate?
Predate.
How do you spell
Like a
that?
predator.
Ah.
The animal, so every quadrant has an animal, every quadrant has an energy, every quadrant has qualities. And in the magician, the animal instinct is the predator. In our culture, listen, we're mothers, right? Would you kill for your children? We would do anything to feed our children, right? That's a healthy predator instinct. But because, once again, especially for women, but this happens for all of us, we're not given permission to have our predator energy as something healthy. It goes underground and we just chew ourselves to bits.
Oh, wow.
Right? Or we we predate on others. And so we have it is one of the most powerful processes. I'm involved with another organization called Women in Power Program. womeninpowerprogram.com. And that's the quadrant. It's facilitated by all shadow work facilitators, founded by women shadow work facilitators, and we actually work in that quadrant, the predator process. We give women a way to go into that process and really capture the gold from that, and then to reclaim our instincts. You know, our good, healthy predator instincts, so we don't hurt ourselves and others. It's quite amazing, really.
oh, growing up in a house where you were not allowed. I mean, you were not allowed. It was naughty. It was, talking back. It wasn't always that way. I grew up in a wonderful home, but it is, I felt that I couldn't say these things. It was more valued to be sweet and to go along and to be easy and not in a not in a sleazy way, but right. And so that was random. So there is a lot of work around that. I think even at 45 I have the work around that.
Yeah. Well, it's a journey, right?
It is a journey.
I keep hoping I arrive. Destination arrive, personal growth
That was my question for you. Are we ever there?
I don't know. For me, I have come to a place of peace and joy that I'm not going to arrive. I'm a seeker.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
And I'm on a journey. So I mean, there were days I'm going through this again.
Right.
How did I handle this?
But it's
something else. Like
spiral.
You're
you're hitting it at different layers. I think.
Yeah. In 12-step, they say you just peel away the onion.
Right. You just keep on.
So after your 12-step, what got you to the next level? Because I see that you've done so much, and you're a writer. You've written 2 amazing books.
Oh yes.
And one of them was all about your addictions, and the book is Relationships from Addiction to Authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
And you said your purpose in writing this book and our desire intention for everyone is they'll be empowered to create in their lives authentic relationships, and that the significant part of your journey is recovering from these addictions.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's available on Amazon.
Yes.
We'll put the links again on our website,
Thank you.
joyrideshow.com.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who deal with their addictive behavior, then they go, now what? Mm-hmm. And for me, being a seeker, I just continued to seek. My husband did something called a Warrior Weekend, Mankind Project. And our founder of Shadow Work was one of the original men that brainstormed and gave birth to the Warrior Weekend. And so my husband introduced me. There was somebody in Houston in our Shadow Work community who was doing a presentation, and he introduced me to that. And so that's how I found Women in Power. That's how I found Shadow Work. And I had already been doing emotional healing work with people here in Houston, too, through another couple that was doing emotional healing work. So that deep emotional work that, kind of make fun of it on television. You get the plastic bat and you hit the pillows. I mean, I love that. I think women need a place where we can just connect with our rage and our fierceness, where we don't hurt ourselves or someone else. So I love that deep work. So deep work really attracted me as well. I'll tell you a funny story. When we were doing that deep emotional release work in the late 80s, I had 2 roommates. We all did it in an organization called Loving Well Institute. It's no longer around, but I was actually a teacher there, but we came and did classes together. And we were living together, and we went home and the door was ajar. So we called the police and we called the fire department. And the firemen, I don't think there were any women, came, and they looked through. The police were there too, and they looked through the house, and they came back out and they said, okay, nobody is there. And that this, very, attractive fireman said, but we did find this. He had this big plastic bat, and on the bat there was this, it said, resentment buster.
He's like, oh, that's ours.
We did find this, he said, with a bunch of pillows in the other room. And we said, yeah, well, that belongs to us anyway. It was kind of a funny story.
So guess what? That's funny.
But you were safe. The house was fine. Just the door had just been, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, my dear. Okay, there's so much to get into here because I also wanted to, when we come back from our break in just a minute, I wanted to hear about this ancestral weaving and also your next book, which is Blessings from Mary, because these are daily sacred feminine meditations to awaken to your divine purpose inspired by Mary Magdalene. And there's a whole story behind that.
Yeah. Yes, there is.
Now, are you wearing the necklace that you were telling us about?
This is Now, does that, if anybody grew up Catholic, that does not look like the medals we grew up when we were Catholic.
She's beautiful.
Tell us,
hair
if you
like
can describe
Tiffany's.
It's sexy. It's Mary Magdalene. And
she's
this
got her
is
hair down.
And her hair's
it's
just blowing in the
back.
wind.
Yeah, she's sexy. She's spiritual. She's alive. And that, Charles Gaby was the first person I saw this on, and isn't it gorgeous?
We'll take a picture of that and post it.
Yeah,
because
I
it's
love
beautiful.
it.
And there's a whole journey. You said you had it, you wore it, and then you lost it.
And I went to France to find it. I went to Vézelay.
And you found it.
I didn't.
And bought all they had.
I didn't.
Oh, you
I
didn't?
didn't find it there. I had to go to the south of France where the legend of Mary Magdalene really lives.
We will be
is,
right
yep.
back with more of Sally in just a moment.
With sword and pistol by my side.
Hi guys, we're back and we're with our friend Sally. I'm just going to call her Sally. Tiffany.
Bartolameolli.
It takes
That's
it
awesome.
takes some practice. You got to be committed.
Well, you said a friend said it rhymes with part of me only.
Yeah, Bartolameolli.
So, Bartolameolli.
Bartolameolli.
Yeah.
So you were telling us the story about you were in France and your friend had this necklace, had this Magdalene, this beautiful necklace, and you wanted it or coveted it, maybe.
Yeah,
better
we
word.
were actually in. Charles Gaby was a youth minister at St. Luke's United Methodist Church, and he had taken a group to the Appalachian Trail for hiking. I'd never hiked officially before.
That's a commitment.
Oh, I'm telling you. And he said it was an easy hike. After the end of the hike, I said, that was not an easy hike. He said, no, it wasn't. Sorry. I
But that's how
I may have downplayed it.
But my friend who was a yoga teacher, Nancy Sorensen, said, hey, let's do this. So we went. So we were hiking, and Charles had this medallion on. And I went, oh, my goddess.
Oh my goodness.
Is that a he said, it's Mary Magdalene. I went, oh my gosh, I love it. And I begged and begged and begged for him to just even let me wear it, and he wouldn't. And when I got back to my car at the airport, when we returned to Houston, I reached into my bag and he had dropped it in there.
Oh,
What a sweet man.
Oh my gosh, it just made such a difference. And I started having this kind of attraction and just this desire to know about Mary Magdalene. And one of the things I learned in my 12-step time is prayer and meditation. Very, very important.
Yes.
So in my morning prayer and meditation, I did a lot of journaling from time to time, and I'd write down a little bit of what was challenging to me at that time, like morning pages. Remember the
Yes.
morning pages? And then all of a sudden I'd start to, like, this weird kind of switch would happen, and I'd start to receive responses from a higher place. And pretty soon I started to really visualize Mary Magdalene in my mind's eye with Jesus. I grew up Catholic. He actually let her do all the talking, which turned me right on. Both my parents had died, so they were in this mind's eye kind of visualization. And I just started having all this inspirational writing from my morning meditation. And after about 6 or 8 months in my prayer and meditation, I kind of got this message that you have to publish this in a book. This is to be published in a book. I'm like, what?
What? This is my personal...
I did not agree to that. And I kept getting in my prayer and meditation, because once we deal with our the majority of our wounds, the majority of our traumas, the majority of our addictions, our family of origin issues, right? What's next? Once we do that, we are of service, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was praying, how can I be of service? And I'd get this message like, I don't want to, I'd say to myself, I don't want to publish this. And I'd get this message, do you want to be of service or do you want to be liked?
Oh,
I'm like,
speaking your
I
language.
had to think about it. I'm like, I think I want both.
Right.
But eventually I got that this was to be published. It didn't matter who read it or who didn't, that was what my service was, and that's how it got published. These are daily meditations inspired by Mary Magdalene. So it starts out with a challenge that I would have had. I didn't write the whole thing. Sometimes those were pages long, but it's a paragraph. And then it's what came to me through my, I call, spirit guides and soul partners.
Mm-hmm.
And that included, Mary Magdalene, it included Jesus, and it included a lot of my own ancestors, my mother and father, my Auntie Anne. I have a rich Italian ancestry. So it it was just a beautiful
Well,
gift.
thank you for doing that and publishing
Yes.
it. And
Yes.
you are liked.
Yes,
you
yes,
did get both.
You got both.
And that book is called Blessings for Mary. It's beautiful. Again, we'll put the link on our website so that you can get that. And thank you for gifting us a copy with it. I
Yes.
cannot
Oh,
wait
you're
She gave us a
welcome.
copy.
Thank you for
to play with
receiving
that. And so you were just speaking about the ancestral, dealing with the family of ancestry. So tell us about
Right.
what that looks like in your work, this ancestral weaving.
Yeah. So part
Please.
of doing family of origin work for me has been really looking at the ways in which I was wounded, the things that I got, the things that I didn't get, ways that, that the deep, deep grief of an early traumatic loss.
Mhm.
I mean, my father died. He and my mother had me late in life. They were in their 40s. I was the last of 26 first cousins from
Wow.
a big Italian family. And he was the hero in both his family and my mother's family. My mother was the baby in her family. He died suddenly when I was 15 months old.
How old was he? He was in his 40s?
46. He was
Oh,
a
he
prisoner
was
of
young.
war in World War II.
Oh, wow.
So what I believe it was PTSD. And back then you didn't, that you were tough,
Right.
and I know he was using alcohol to cope. And my mother told me the story when I was an adult that she held me up. I was 15 months old. And she said, if you won't go for me, will you go for her? And so he finally went to the hospital, and within a week he was gone because he had been so avoidant to getting help. And, it's that's trauma. That's a
Yeah.
That is
It's
trauma.
a traumatic story. So we didn't talk about it growing up, right?
Mhm.
My mother was, trying to hold together a business that he left her. She had a son in college. She had a baby. She had a home. And she was in survival. And
Mhm.
so there were things that needed to be handled when I got to therapy and when I got to my personal growth work, that I had a lot of grieving to do. And the more I did that work of grieving what I didn't receive, the more I started to have this deep gratitude for my family.
Mm.
It was just miraculous. And I started to see things from another perspective. I started to see, okay, in my family this didn't happen, so I can leave that, but I did get this.
Right.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
going to take that.
Yeah.
And so I started to, I'm in the middle of a third book. It's a memoir called For All My Relations. And I'm looking at these stories and ways that I can say, wow, look at how I was blessed. And wow, this is a way that I was really hurt. But because I chose to go through that initiation and look at that pain and that grief and do my work, I can now see it all as a blessing. That takes time.
That's the miracle.
Oh, that is
It
the
is a
miracle.
miracle,
That's what
but
you
it
do.
takes time, and I don't want people to rush. I don't encourage people to rush to gratitude. I don't encourage people
You've
to
gotta go
rush through forgiveness.
through the pain, through
just
the
trust,
situation first.
surrender surrender to the
Surrender.
journey.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Wow. Thank you for taking this all on and
Yeah.
for choosing to then teach and having firsthand knowledge of, we've talked about sex and food and anger, and you've been through all of that and can speak firsthand about how to move through it and get through the other side. That's beautiful.
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Does the process work as well for men and women with the four
Absolutely.
archetypes?
Oh, yeah.
Are they the
Yeah.
same?
My husband is actually a certified shadow work facilitator.
that's
He
great.
just got certified a year and a half ago. And part of our journey to be certified, it's very, it's expensive
Mhm.
and it's very time consuming. You have to walk through a lot of hoops, and you should, because
Right.
you're holding a very sacred space for people. We have to do our own work. There's just a lot. And so one of the ways that you are finally blessed to be a shadow work facilitator is you hold your own shadow work weekend. And so he and I did a shadow work weekend. So there are co-gender weekends. You must have a male facilitator and a female facilitator.
Sure.
And then I'm doing an all-women's weekend with another woman. So, yeah. So men are, and then there are some all-men's weekends, that come up around the country.
And you mentioned also that it was shamanistic. How does that play in?
Well, people have, I had a friend years ago, she started training, I met her at Women in Power actually, and she started training to be a shadow work facilitator, and she said it's the new shamanism.
Yeah.
And I don't know really how to put that into words other than when you have skilled eldership and skilled facilitators, when you really do your own work as facilitators, so you can create a clean space, and when you honor the values and the principles that we are taught in shadow work, there's very deep spiritual work that happens, and so in that way we also call upon, as a facilitator, I call upon all my ancestors when I'm facilitating. I call upon other spiritual resources, and not to be attached to that, but to really know that we're the vessel.
It's that wisdom
exactly.
too.
Like you probably have that belief about what you're doing here.
Absolutely.
That you are vessels to bring into the world what people need to hear or want to hear. So I thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I didn't think of it that way until just now, so thank you for that. Oh, such
It's a love fest.
No, Tiffany does EFT, and I know
That's powerful work.
it is incredible,
life-changing.
And I know I've said this. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to say it again. She worked with me when we first met, and it was so. It just transformed a certain scene that I had in my childhood that I'd held on to into a beautiful thing. It went from being, I can't believe that happened to me, to, oh, I'm so glad that happened to me.
Right.
I get it now.
Right.
I get it as an adult.
Right.
And Tiffany has that ability to bring in knowledge from everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, from the higher ups. So
Beautiful.
it's beautiful. She's really,
Oh, that's
really
great.
good at this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Same thing when I work one-on-one. I'm like, what do they need to hear? Let me be the
Right.
voice and
Right.
sort of guide me where to stay here or
Yeah.
move on, or that's not ready for that yet. So
Yeah,
it's
good.
I
And
think
as-
it's all shadow work light.
Yeah.
I do the very
Well, I don't know if it's light, but
No, I don't
Yeah,
think it's
and-
well,
like
it's not to the extent that you guys go on a multiple, day workshop. That's
Yeah.
very deep.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd like to try this. I'd
I
like
know,
to actually
I'm-
do this
yeah.
myself.
I am definitely. I know. I was thinking about you too. I am. So, I'm married to an engineer, attorney. You're very pragmatic, not a seeker at all.
High magician,
He-
high warrior.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. He's an incredible man.
He
and
loves you.
He does,
Good.
and
He's got
spoke.
some good lover.
Yes, he does, and he holds space for me to grow into what I am
Lot of
and where I will
sovereign.
be.
Yeah, good.
And he doesn't necessarily. He's very strong, and I don't have. I can walk alongside you. I
Yeah.
don't have to become you. You don't become me.
Good.
So it's great. But to be in a partnership like you are, where you have someone doing the same type of work, that's interesting.
It is interesting. And the other thing which is really interesting in shadow work, we have a statistician, PhD statistician, and we have a PhD psychologist who actually have created a survey. It's called the Shadow Types Survey. So we can actually give someone a survey and ask them questions. It's very well created, it has good reliability, good validity, and its outcomes. And we show them what they're high in, like what archetypes. Within each of the 4 archetypes, we have 3 different aspects of those archetypes. My husband is... So what I want to say is, even though we're both certified shadow work facilitators, relationships are challenging. He's
Sure.
very, very high magician, and he's very, very high vigilance. Part of your magician gift is you see things, and you can avoid danger. That an animal that's kind of stalking, they're looking for danger, and that's an important. Listen, we got kids who cross the street.
Right.
We live, but he's so high in that. That's my lowest quadrant. I'm very high warrior, very high lover, very high sovereign. So we, when we facilitate together, we get to put our attention on you, which is great. But when we live together, we have, some of those challenges that we have to navigate on our own. And, I'm grateful that I am married to a seeker, because we have a lot of tools, and it can still be challenging, right?
Can
I get a
Get an
amen,
amen. Yeah, exactly.
And that's why you're doing your own work. Like you said, you're keeping
Yeah.
it clean, and you have these tools, and emotions are normal. These emotions are so normal.
Yeah.
Even if I think as long as you're here in a human body, you're going to be experiencing challenges
Yeah.
and taking it to
in
the
your
next level.
relationships
So
with other people. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
you're real.
you are real.
It's real.
Well, it is. I think relationships are tough. I mean, I think, and I know I need to rephrase that because they're beautiful and
challenging.
they are.
It's your biggest
They
work.
are.
Yeah, your biggest
Exactly.
growth. That's
Yeah.
why we're here, I believe.
Is for
Yes,
that
I
part.
agree.
To learn to
I
love
agree.
ourselves and
Yeah.
everybody else
Deepen
where they
our
are.
intimacy
And
with
hold
others.
space for that.
Yeah.
I love
And
the term
allow.
holding space.
Yeah.
And allow. That's
Allow.
exactly
Yeah.
right. And however we get there, whether it's from the divine, whether it's
Right.
shadow work,
Yeah.
it's but you're right. There is a time for both. There is a time to go into the dark and then there's a time to come out. But it's not really dark. It's just seeing aspects of
It is
yourself.
scary. I mean, it's scary to uncover parts of yourself that have shame attached to them, right?
Mhm.
So shame is another. We could even do a whole show on shame. You know, the gifts of shame. I mean, I think learning to initiate ourselves to our shame that we carry is also one of the most challenging pieces of work we can do, because shame is one of those emotions when you're feeling it. When I'm feeling shame, it's not like I made a mistake. I am a mistake, and it's so convincing. Okay, something is wrong with me. Okay, I'm never going to get this right. You know, shame is very convincing. So doing our shame work is, I think, really, really important for authentic connection with ourselves and others.
Absolutely. Dr. David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force, he has ranked a number of this, he calls it the scale of human consciousness, and it's the emotions that have the vibration, and shame is the lowest, densest, contracted vibration.
Yeah.
Because it makes
Yeah.
you feel like I am shame. I am not worthy.
Yeah.
I am
yeah.
not fit
Something's
to be
wrong
here.
with it. Right. And so no wonder we avoid it. But I think we have to embrace it.
Yeah,
You
and
know, I
that's
think
where
we
you're
have
saying
to.
that energy that's held in that vibration, once you
Right.
free it up, it is so transformative.
yeah.
You could hardly even
Right.
recognize yourself.
Yeah, you have so much more energy, and you name it. Okay, that's when that happens to me. I go, okay, I'm feeling some shame. That's okay. That's shame. It isn't really who I am. We
Right.
have a name for it.
It's an
It's called
emotion.
shame.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think forgiveness plays a lot into that. We as humans and bumping into each other and making mistakes, seeing that as something to be able to forgive. In order to practice forgiveness, there needs to be something to forgive. So all of these things that happen to us, being able to see it through the eyes of forgiveness, transforming that shame of what you've done or what they've done.
Right.
I'm going somewhere with this, I know, but it's such a transformative, powerful, when you choose to look at it, when you actually have the
Right.
courage and the bravery, the truthfulness to look at
Right,
yourself
right.
and transform that
Yeah.
energy. So thank you for holding that space for people
Yes.
to do that in a
And to
safe
you,
way.
yeah, to both of you and to your work. And I don't believe we can do that alone.
Yeah.
We
No.
need our tribe. We need our support. We need circles, of women and men that are allies.
Yeah.
We can't do it alone. That's part of our teaching is we can't do it alone.
And you're not alone if you have this. This is a normal human emotion. It's a
Right.
normal human experience. And when you transform it, it may become your biggest blessing.
Right.
Well, and everybody has it.
Everybody has
and yes. And my question, and I know we're running out of time here, but my question is how to parent where you're not feeding into the like how to parent so your children can see the shadows, or you're not creating more shame, and you're not, because I know that I don't, look, everybody comes, all my kids will have to do work on their own. Hopefully they will have
We
the
have a
courage
therapy
to do it.
account.
Exactly. I just put $50
We're
in your
all
therapy jar.
human. We all have our own journeys.
We do, but I hopefully won't add to that in an extreme way.
Right.
I know just by being who I am, I will add to that. But
Yeah.
it is, so that, that's a whole other topic.
Well, I think the way that we can most love our children and help to create a shame-free journey for them is to do our own work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not try to live
and
through
also
them.
to learn what is shame, how do we identify it.
Okay, can you come back and we do a whole show on shame?
Oh, I'd love to.
We'll do the shame show.
The shame show and
The
your
shiny
new book,
shame show.
Your new book with your memoir.
With
so
Sally.
Please,
The
the shame
shiny
show with
shame.
Sally.
I love
Yes.
alliteration.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you so much
yeah.
for
Thank you
sharing
for
all
asking
of
me.
You are
this
so
Thank you
beautiful.
much.
beautiful
I love
knowledge
what
that
you're
you've
doing.
acquired on your journey and the workshops. Again, we'll put all the links so that you can connect with Sally, whether it's a workshop or an e-course or a Skype session or reading her books. There's so many ways to put your toe in this water and get more information. And
Well,
so
check out her website.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off there, but check out her website. She has so much information
And
and free downloads.
A lot of
and
free downloads, please. I
Yes.
would love for people to, and it may be of service and it may not, but it is complimentary.
And your Facebook and your blog, there's
Yeah.
a lot of ways to get your knowledge. And if this is resonating with you, we highly recommend that you do your work, because that's how you can be of service in your little corner of the world.
That's
And you're
right.
so happy. I mean, when you do it, you just
It feels good.
It just really
Yeah.
feels
It's
good.
it just hurts for a second. It's just like pulling off the
pulling up a
Band-Aid.
Band-Aid.
We love you, Sally.
Oh,
Thank you.
I love you too.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being
Thank you
here,
for being
both of
here.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Have a great week.
Have a great week.
I see trees of green.
This is Radio Brave. Keep listening. It gets even better.
Now let's do it up.
Radio Brave.